And welcome to Listening to Lancaster. My name is Jonathan Russell with Hourglass, and it is my pleasure to be here today with Linda Crockett from Safe Communities and Brad Ortenzi from ZOE International. Thanks so much for being with me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Brad.
And we are going to have a conversation today about a topic that affects a lot of people in Lancaster County, many more than we might think it does, and that's child sexual abuse and human trafficking. If you could each take some time to introduce yourselves, a brief overview of yourselves and the organizations you represent. Linda, would you like to go first?
Sure, I can do that. Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, I founded Safe Communities a couple of years ago. Previously, I had run many programs on child sexual abuse prevention and response to domestic violence at a counseling center. But the work with child sexual abuse really became very demanding, and I wanted to devote full time to that work. So I founded Safe Communities a couple of years ago. We exist to prevent child sexual abuse and to help survivors heal and find community with others where they can have really joyful lives. So our mission then at Safe Communities is to educate adults about how to keep children safe from sexual abuse. We engage organizations, institutions, congregations in how to actually develop a culture that prioritizes abuse prevention rather than just responding after it happens. And we do that through policy work and best practices and training. And then kind of the third leg of our mission is empowering adult survivors, a good number of whom now are also survivors of child sex trafficking. How do we empower these survivors to heal through groups and retreat and artwork and all of the integrative kind of things that we know are so important in healing from trauma? So that's what Safe Community does. I come to this work as a survivor myself. Like many other leaders in the field, you know, I survived, I wasn't trafficked, but I was sexually abused as a child. And so part of my work over the past 20 years is to use my professional expertise as well as my own background to advance the work on how do we actually create communities that are free from sexual exploitation of children.
Thanks for sharing. Brad?
As always, Linda, you're a hard act to follow. So my name is Brad Ortenzi. I'm with ZOE International. ZOE International is an anti-trafficking nonprofit or NGO, non-government organization. We are a global nonprofit. We are in 5 countries. Thailand is our biggest operation. We're also internationally, we're in Mexico, Japan, and Australia. And then here in the US, we're in Los Angeles, and we're just starting up things here in Pennsylvania, expanding on the East Coast. My position is the Eastern USA Regional Director. What we do at ZOE, normally we operate in 3 pillars. So that is prevention, intervention or rescue, and aftercare. And because we're global, the work that we do worldwide differs greatly depending on what country we're in. One of the things that ZOE has a really great niche for is partnering with government, the government within whatever country we're working in, and seeing how we can help and kind of bridge some gaps anywhere in those 3 pillars, the anti-trafficking movement. So prevention, intervention, and aftercare. So yeah, prior to that, I've been with ZOE for about 7 years. Prior to that, I was a detective in Ephrata for almost about 20 years. And that's kind of what led me into this work, specifically on child trafficking. The latter part of my career, I worked with the district attorney's office in a county-wide task force. It was a computer crime, but basically most of my work detailed the internet trading of child pornography. I think at that point, that's where kind of my heart got broke for what was going on and the vast problem, how just the child exploitation of that was just so prolific, even in Lancaster County. And then that kind of led me to ZOE with my second career. So.
And Brad, how is your work with ZOE related to Lancaster County and with your work here?
Yeah, great question. So upon returning here to Pennsylvania, I started rubbing elbows with members from the Lancaster County District Attorney's Office. And these were members that I had worked with before. And so in conversation, we found that there was a countywide task force for anti-trafficking efforts here in Lancaster County. But in that discussion, I was asked to kind of come on board as the coordinator of the Human Trafficking Task Force. So now what I'm doing is assisting Lancaster County. ZOE's donating my time to Lancaster County as I operate in this capacity. And we're starting to form a task force that's going to be a very robust task force that's going to hit those kind of three aspects that I just talked about. We're going to be doing prevention. Probably the biggest part of this task force is the restorative program. So when someone is trafficked here in Lancaster County, what facilities are available, what programs are available for them, and mainly, and I really see this as a victim-centered approach to this, where the person that's rescued is the most important person in this process. So what can we do for them?
Wow. Okay, great. And if you could both, for a little bit here, explain how prevalent this issue is in Lancaster and in our area. I'm sure there's many people who don't think of it as very prevalent, but sadly, the truth is otherwise.
True. Well, I will speak first to the issue of sexual abuse, and then we can move into the child sex trafficking piece. So we know from a lot of research and multiple studies that at least 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused before they're ever 18. Lancaster is no exception to those statistics. And we also know that child sexual abuse leaves children very, very vulnerable to further commercial sexual exploitation. For example, in all of the research and studies that are done, child sexual and physical abuse are one of the biggest risk factors for a child being trafficked, with sexual abuse in particular being a pathway into extreme vulnerability for trafficking. So we know that when kids are sexually abused, they often are abused by their family members or somebody in their close circle of friends, school, pastors, coaches. And many of them, also at least the ones we encounter at Safe Communities, are often trafficked first by someone within that circle. So it's deeply interrelated. And we have, for example, a lot of churches and faith-based groups that want to end child sex trafficking as part of their mission, but they see it as more something out there. It doesn't affect their children and their community, when the reality is there are children trafficked in Lancaster all of the time. That has been the case for many years. It's not stopping now, and what we're trying to do is help people make that connection and understand if we can stop sexual abuse of children, we do a lot to shut down that trafficking pipeline. Yeah.
I agree, Linda, but also I guess we know the problem is there. We just don't know how prolific it is as far as specifically the trafficking. But we do know that the exploitation is there, just like every other county in the nation. So, and exploitation and trafficking obviously go hand in hand. So, yeah, I agree with everything that Linda said. It's going to be interesting now that once the task force for the county is going to be up and running, there's going to be, I'm assuming, to be a lot more proactive work in seeking it out. And I think too, with prevention and education, that probably will bring to light some cases that are going on, but just not haven't come to the forefront yet. So, yeah, I agree with Linda. It's our county. You know, we may be different in a lot of ways from other counties, but statistics are kind of showing that the exploitation statistics are the same as every other county. So we can assume that because of the exploitation statistics are the same, the trafficking is going to be pretty close to the same as well. Specifically speaking on trafficking, you know, we have the Route 30 corridor that we're very concerned about. The previous cases from Lancaster County for trafficking have been pretty much on that Route 30 corridor. So, and anywhere there's tourism, that's kind of a red flag for trafficking opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
So the pandemic has made it so that everybody's got to reevaluate how we do our work. And I imagine that's no different for the work you do with children spending less time in schools with mandatory reporters, children spending less time in churches with maybe folks that they could feel like they can talk to confidentially. How has this affected the work that you do? I imagine it's been much more difficult.
Well, it certainly has for us at Safe Communities. So many of the mandatory reporters are not regularly in children's lives, that the most vulnerable children and children who are being sexually abused, and that's a hard thing to identify when you're with a kid just on video. It's not like even physical abuse where you may be able to see some bruises, or neglect where you may see some dirty clothing. Sexual abuse is much harder to identify. And with so many kids being isolated from regular mandatory reporter contact, you know, they can't go to school regularly, they can't be at church, they can't be at their youth clubs. So many are slipping through the cracks. One of the things that 2020 showed us is, in addition with a steep drop in the number of mandated reports being received by Childline, we also had great upticks in children who were self-reporting into national hotlines, usually used by adult survivors, and asking for help because they were being sexually abused, most of them by somebody at home. So there was a huge uptick in that. We know also that nationally there was quite an uptick in sexual exploitation online, because children are now sheltering in place with perpetrators who then are taking advantage of that to make some money, you know, film and upload their videos. And then additionally at Safe Communities, we were getting calls from people who were concerned about children that weren't being protected. And we have a lot of requests for help for adult survivors who've been very much, their PTSD, if that's what they suffer from, is reactivated by the isolation of COVID. They have lack of social supports that they used to have. Some of them are not adept with connecting by videos. And so you have this perfect conflagration of children being unprotected and survivors needing help that really characterized a lot of 2020. You know, we've been innovative and done as much as we could online, but it's still been really, really difficult to meet this urgent need. So that's what we think we're going to be moving into in this new year, 2021.
Wow.
Yeah, great answers, Linda. I can add a whole lot to that. I will add that, you know, with exploitation, trafficking again, hand in hand. What the recruiters or the bad guys, what they like to do and what they're good at is finding those kind of niches that the kids have the void. So if that means that they're spending more time online, they're going to go online. If they can isolate and find the kids that are isolated, feeling lonely, which, in 2020, what child hasn't felt lonely and kind of disconnected from friends, disconnected from their rituals of seeing them at school and such like that. So there's a lot of red flags when this first started out. So one of the things that ZOE did is we upped our online approach to the kids to try and get them and try and reach out to them through our prevention programs and let them know, and also let their parents know, hey, this is going to be happening. So for the prevention part, we kind of upped our game there. But like Linda said, being innovative, one thing that a nonprofit has to be, if you're going to survive, is think outside the box and find ways just to get things done. That's kind of the heart of the nonprofit anyway. So that's kind of how ZOE acted. I know that in Los Angeles, we advocate, we're in a first responders program, and we advocate for, I believe, between 60 and 70 girls that have been rescued from Los Angeles County. And our advocates there have had a challenging time. Again, there's no group therapy. The one-on-one is really mixed. And that's really where our advocates shine, to love on these kids unconditionally and get face-to-face time with them. And that's where, that's been hindered a lot. And just even, the smallest task of doing that with a mask now and not having the usual human contact that you can have to show the children that, hey, you're still loved no matter what's going on in your life. So so there's been challenges, but again, we just kind of think outside the box and try and meet the needs however we can.
And, what is, in terms of thinking outside of the box, and what is this looks like going forward, how does this field of child sexual abuse and prevention, how is this field looking going forward in Lancaster County? What are some things to look out for? And how can our listeners get involved if they're interested or if they'd like to reach out to you? Linda, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I would say the field going forward in Lancaster County, we certainly need a lot more investment and funding in child sexual abuse prevention and response. We don't have a lot of that in Lancaster County. And in the national field, in terms of all of philanthropy, less than 0.5% of philanthropy is dedicated to ending or preventing child sexual abuse. Many other things, and yet, child sexual abuse is one of the risk factors for people as adults, becoming homeless, developing drug and alcohol addictions, suicidal ideation, all of the kind of chronic conditions that we invest money in as a community here in Lancaster. I don't think we invest nearly enough in prevention. And so I think the community at Lancaster has to get really serious about child sexual abuse prevention. And it is very possible to get educated. For example, we offer online training sessions for parents. What do you need to know about keeping your kids safe online and in real time? We offer training for teachers. We offer education for pastors and church leaders. So we do all of that online, but getting people to pay attention and understanding that this is a really serious issue. And if we ever want to address homelessness and drug addiction and all the rest of it, we've got to start investing in our future, in our children, and we're not doing that. So my hope is that we can help to be a catalyst along with Brad and other groups who've been, also working at this for a long time, to help Lancaster County leaders see the critical aspects of really taking on child sexual abuse and exploitation as a major initiative.
Wow. Yeah, is it okay if my answers from now on are what she said?
Yeah, Brad, I'm putting you in a tough spot here.
Let's switch maybe the the chronologically who speaks first. So yeah, Linda hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's just so much. It's such an important issue, and keeping kids safe is kind of the heart of what we do. So yeah, funding is one thing. Funding, all nonprofits that do this, they're always looking for funding, and that's just kind of one of the things that we have to be doing. So yeah, but looking forward, yeah, it's who'd have thought that here we are just about a year into this whole thing, and here we are, we're still battling it. So we've switched a lot again to online profiles, defining curriculum, making curriculum for people to keep their kids safe. But as Linda said, you can have the best curriculum and everything be available, but instilling the need for people to engage in that's the challenging part. So that's always, and that's going to be continue to be a challenge in the next coming year. We're really excited about what's happening with the district attorney's task force, because there's going to be a lot of opportunities for people to engage there in the future as we put this thing together. And again, I just kind of kudos to District Attorney Heather Adams, Karen Mansfield, the initiative behind putting this task force together. Lancaster County is really going to be blessed at the other end of this, because we're going to have a very robust human trafficking task force. Just the first number of things and the research we've done has given us a kind of instilled and fueled this fire for this is going to be the need for Lancaster County. And again, we don't know how prolific the problem is, quite honestly, but nonetheless, how wise is it to, if it's not a huge problem, how wise is it to get ahead of the game? Because we know it's only going to get worse. We know that things right now are not getting better. So that said, within the task force, there's going to be community engagement. I assume there's just going to be a community engagement portal for volunteers, for people to help with prevention, for people to initiate the conversation between the task force and their group. So we're going to have, I believe we're going to have presenters for prevention come and kind of engage in conversation and teachings for that. So more to come for the district attorney's task force, but very, very excited for the potential of how to engage Lancaster County in child exploitation and child trafficking. Excellent.
That's these are all really important initiatives going forward, and we'll in the description of this video we'll put some resources from both of these organizations down there, so that those following along at home can click on them and learn more for yourselves. We're about out of time today, but I'd like to ask the question I ask everybody, that during this pandemic time, what have you done that's been fun or interesting that you hadn't done before? I know for me, I've taken my dog on lots of walks and tried a bunch of new recipes cooking. But Brad, I'll let you go first. So, with this last question.
Thank you. Yeah, so my wife Laura and I, we just got a new puppy, a Bernedoodle. So fun. We anticipate it being fun, but right now we're in the stage of just making sure he's not out of our sight for more than a second or two. But that has been fun. And on top of that, I have a habit of spending a little too much time on the TV. So I tried to do a lot more reading during this time.
How about you, Linda?
Yeah, I've been getting outside to go for more walks, including making myself get out there when it's like 25 degrees. So I toughen up a little bit. This is the East Coast after all. So I'm doing a lot more walking, and I'm also just reading some books that are not about the field of sexual trauma, which is delightful. I'm reading Barack Obama's memoir, and that's a big read, but I'm so enjoying that. And so being outside and doing reading for pleasure are two things that have been helping me. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like we've covered a lot of topics here today, and there's a lot still to learn for folks. But I appreciate you both taking time to chat today. and we'll get this video out to folks. And like I said, there'll be some information in the description for anybody who's interested. So thanks, Linda, and thanks, Brad. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Jonathan.